Okay, so here we go. This is not an easy daf tonight.
Shaka, before you go, it is Thursday night. What time you want to do tomorrow?
Oh, Thursday night. So tomorrow's daf is Barada, not so long.
5:30, 5:45.
What time is the early Shabbos? 6:15?
6:15, 6:20.
I'd call it for 5:40.
Okay, and what's up?
What did we do last week? 1:45, right? 1:45 should be fine. Till we get it rolling.
Okay.
Calling it for 2 people start showing up.
What? Call it what?
I said we call for 1:45. People start to show up 9:55. We should call for 9:30.
That's true. That's true. But we gotta have some. We gotta have some MS.
Shabbos is not over yet at 9:30.
Wait. Are you in Florida?
I am in Florida. Yes.
So 9:45 in Florida is going to be an interesting time to start.
No. It's actually Shabbos is over earlier here. Ski is like 10 minutes earlier than there. I don't know why. I always thought it was always later, but here
maybe that's in the summer. I could be wrong.
Yeah, I think in the summer it gets earlier. Anyways, okay, so Zok the Mishna. No, we're not up to the Mishna. We got up to the 2 dots. Lamed Amar Aleph. So we had this in Ksubas, this case. So because since we've been talking about a guy making a divorce, a get on a Tanai, so the Gemara says like this: Ahuda Amar, a guy says to his wife, he gave her a get, and he said, if I don't come back for 30 days, then let this be a get. Right? Now, seemingly, he's trying to avoid the whole Yibam Chalitza issue. So also, he came back, but then the boat that crossed over the river was broken, either broken or wasn't going. So he's standing on the other side of the river and he's screaming and yelling, I'm here. I don't want the get to happen because I'm home or I'm back. But Lamaisi never made it to the town because he's on the other side of the river. He said, I'm here. That's not called coming, and therefore the get is a get. If he'd be a kohen, then he would not be able to remarry his wife. Now there's 2 pshatim. Rashi brings 2 pshatim here. Why it's not a get? Because there's no einus. In a Tanai Gittin, there's no einus. If a guy makes a Tanai in a get, there's no einus on that. We don't say there's any einus. Or we say there is einus begittin, right? But that's only by an einus that's shriach. But here, since I guess the boats or the ships crossing the river, were not always so common that they ran, they were constantly broken. So therefore, that's something that he should have had the foresight to at least put it into the get and say, if I'm there, or not if I'm not on the other side of the river and I can't make it, then let that be considered as if I'm coming. Since he didn't do that, he lost out. Yeah, right? Fine. So that's case number 1. Then case number 2, he says, let this be a get unless I can convince my wife to stay married to me for 30 days. Then lahavi gita, then it's a get. Azal paisa, so he went and he tried to convince her. But she was not convincible. Right? Rashi says, he tried to talk to her and he tried to get her friends to talk to her, right? But she didn't want, which is, by the way, a very common occurrence with the Shalom Bayis things, that you send friends and then they can't convince. Some Rabbi Yosef. Did he actually give her a tirkava de dinri? I don't know exactly how much money that is, but it's a decent amount of money. Meaning he's saying he didn't try hard enough. That's what Rabbi Yosef is saying. You got to buy her off. And he didn't. Ikadamri, that's or another shot. Amar Rabbi Yosef. The opposite. Does he have to give her that much money in order to convince her? He tried to get her to convince her, and she's not interested. Right? So therefore, the get is a get. Yeah. So Gemara says, meaning the difference between the two pshatim is command or yesh eines begin. One says that there is eines begin, like we just mentioned, or command or ein eines begin, and the other one saying that there's no such thing as eines begin, and therefore she is considered divorced, right? Meaning, the one that says that there's yesh eines begin, so therefore they won't be divorced. And the other mandomer that says that's einos begin, then they are going to be divorced, because just because you're einos doesn't mean that you're getting out of it. You made the get with the Tanai, and therefore you didn't meet the qualifications that you set forth, so therefore you're out. Fine. Zog the Mishna. Now again the same, going with the same theme that we've been saying till now, which is that we're not choshed for death, right? And we go with the chazaka. So mal v'mois, if a guy lends money, as a kohen, as a levi, as a ani, and he lent money either to a kohen and a levi and an ani, lias mafresh alein mechelkon, and what he's going to do is he's going to separate from their chelek of his trumas and maisus and maiserani that he has to give to them. So mafresh alein b'cheskes shehin kaimen, he can separate their portion with the chazaka that they're alive, and we're not going to be concerned that maybe the kohen or levi died, or the ani got rich. Right? So we need a little bit of background to understand this Mishnah. Basically, this guy pulled a good scam. He wants to lend the kohen, levi, or ani money, right? But he wants to make sure he gets paid back. So he says, the lender says, I have this large field, let's say with wheat, fruits, and I have to give some of it to a kohen, I have to give some of it to a levi, and I have to give some of it to an ani. So he says, you know what? Instead of you guys paying me back, I'm going to separate the fruits, and then I'm going to keep them for myself. But basically, it's as if they're yours, and I'm keeping them as my payment. Right? So the Gemara, the Mishna says that's allowed. That could be done. But what happens if they die? If they die in the interim, then trumas and maisus don't go to somebody who's dead. So maybe the guy ends up using trumas and maisus that belong to a kohen and to a levi, right? Or let's say the ani becomes wealthy, right? So then what? So why doesn't it say, well, maybe the ani will die? Because if the ani dies, then it'll go to somebody else, to a different ani. That's why ani, there's no death by ani, saying that it becomes wealthy. But anyways, and then we'll see. Actually, the truth is it could go to another ani in that situation too, but we'll see that on beis. Okay, but anyway, so that's what the Mishna is saying, that this guy can pay himself back with his own trumas and maisus based on these people. But Mesu, but if they die, then he has to take permission from the Yarshim, right? Because the Yarshim are not mechuyev to pay back. We're going to see on beis, but Yarshim are not mechuyev to pay back their father's debt, unless it's karka. If it's karka, then that is meshubed to the lenders. But stam metaltalin, they're not mechuyev to. So how can you go?
Ovaja's children were going to be sold to be slaves. What happened there?
The what?
Ovaja from the Nach. Remember Nach? Ovaja.
Yes. I don't remember. It's not remember Nach. I never learned it. But yeah, go ahead.
So remember, Ovaja borrowed a lot of money to save 100 Nevi'im. So remember, we have the Haftorah that she has to give up her children as like slaves, as payback, and then Elisha or Liao comes along and says, how much oil do you have? And remember all that?
Yeah.
So didn't we just say a child doesn't have to pay back his father's debts?
Correct. But we're going to see that maybe if he had karka, then maybe.
There was no karka involved in this case.
What do you mean? In which case? Ours or the case over there?
Ovaja. There was no karka.
I don't know. He didn't leave any karka whatsoever.
He was completely poor. All right. Look.
I don't know. I don't remember I remember the story a little bit, but I don't remember the all the specifics. We'll see on beis. But anyways, if the guy dies, So now those kids are not mechuyev to pay back their father's debts. So therefore, the lender has to go ask the Yarshim for permission, right? Im hilvan b'fnei bezdin, but if he borrowed the money in front of bezdin, right? Then he doesn't have to take rishus from the Yarshim, right? Because why? Because it's the rachrayis, kohanim and leviim to give up the trumas and meiser to pay the debt from the person, right? Which basically works like yesh koyach lebezin. Rashi says to put the chayiv on kohanim bechlal to take care of their own brethren, as they say, right? And the reason for this is because they wanted to make sure to keep the economy going, so they had to make sure there was enough money being lent. So if they weren't going to allow this, then people would withhold lending money. So they wanted to make it easier to be able to collect debts. So Mamela, if the loan was done in front of Bezdin, then this guy could keep the Chumas and Mises. Okay, so the Gemara asks, how could this lender take the Chumas and Mises, right? And then he's looking at it as if it's payment for the loan. The guy was never kohen, meaning the levi and the kohen were never kohen the fruits from the lender. Meaning basically what the lender is doing, he's saying, I'm going to separate Chumas and Maises, but instead of giving it to you, I'm keeping it for myself as my payment. Right? So that's fine. But Lamaisa, how was the borrower, who's the kohen or the levi, how was he ever kohen to be able to give it back to the Malva? So Marav, so the Gemara says 3 terutzim. We're talking about somebody who he recognized. Meaning, the way it seemed like it worked back then was that you had your favorite kohanim and leviim, right? And those were your steadies who you constantly gave your trumas and maisos to. So this is talking about his steady guy. So it's as if it's like an automatic almost that it goes to him. Even though Lamaisa, there's no kinyan, there's no official kinyan going on here, but it's considered like he gets to like he's kohenet. That's teretz number 1. Shmuel Amar b'mezakel ma'idei acherim. What he did is that he was maked to him through somebody else because of the rule of zachan l'adam shalei b'fanav. Right? We do this by mechiras chametz, right? And we said we do this sometimes with tfilas kelim. If you want to give a present to somebody and you want to tevel it on their behalf, so you give it to a third party on behalf of the other person. And you can do that without the person knowing because it's a schus, there's no chiyuv here. So basically, what this guy does is he gives it to his neighbor on behalf of the kohanim and leviim. They pick it up and then they give it back to him, right? And that's the way that would work. That's the way we also make an eruv. If anybody ever made an eruv, we do the same thing. Ula Amar, a third teretz, Hamani Rabbi Yaisi, this time Rabbi Yaisi, Da Amar, also a she'ena zoicha kezoicha. Sometimes the Chacham had a koyach to take a din and say that somebody who wasn't officially zoicha, I mean, he didn't officially acquire anything, but we say that even though he didn't do it, it's as if he did it. Right? Now, it's talking about, Rashi goes through a few examples of cases of a poor guy who goes to take fruits from an olive tree that, like, I don't know if it was paya or whatever it is, and he climbs to the top of the tree. Now, normally it's first come, first serve. But if this guy climbed to the top of the tree in order to get the olives, so the Chachamim said he gets them because otherwise it's going to be bedlam. If he climbed all the way up and then he knocks off the olives and then somebody else comes and takes them, right? Rashi brings a couple other examples. Fine. So anyway, so those are the 3 terutzim how the kinyan happens. So now the Gemara asks why each one doesn't want to say like the other one. So Kulu Karav Lo Yamri, they all don't like Rab's pshat, which is that they were his steady customers. They were the steady kohanim and normally gives it to the Makira like Katani, because the Mishna doesn't say anything about that the guy, the kohen and levi that borrowed the money is somebody who he recognizes. It just says Stam, he's a kohen and levi. So it's not really meduyik like Rab. Shmuel like Amri b'mezaka like Katani. It doesn't say that he is being mezaka the trumas and maisus to somebody else on behalf of the kohen and the levi. It doesn't say that. Nobody likes to say like ula because that's only going according to Rabbi Yossi. And why should we say that the Mishnah is only going according to a das yochid? So those are the three reasons why each one doesn't like the other one's pshat. Fine. Now the Gemara brings a Braysa that adds on a lot of halachas to this. The Torah is a kohen, a levi, a ani. So somebody lends money to a kohen, a levi, or an ani. And he's going to separate from their chelik and keep it for himself. So he could separate it on the chazaka that they're alive, right? That's so far, that's exactly like our Mishnah. He doesn't have to be worried that they're dead. And therefore the trumas and maasas that he's eating now don't belong to him because they don't belong to the kohen and levi who borrowed from him either because they're dead. And what he can say is that he is going to get paid back at the shar hazol. The shar means the going price, but he's going to get it at the cheaper price. Meaning, was what happens if he lent the money, right? And then the fruits, based on his thought, he's going to, let's say, get a bag of apples out of it, and that will cover the money for the loan. But then the bag of apples gets very expensive. So then instead of him getting a bag of apples, he's only going to end up with 2 apples when he anticipated getting a full bag of apples as payback for his loan. Right? So he's allowed to say he gets to get it at the cheaper price of the apples. Yeah, even though that's not normally so pashut that's allowed because of ribis issues. Ribis, and there's no ribis. Normally in a regular loan, you're not allowed to do this. Here you are allowed to do this. Right? Fine. Shvius doesn't knock it out either, meaning this is not your standard loan. A standard loan, we know that when the Shemitah is over, so you don't have to pay it back. Now, Bezdin created the prusbul, as we know, but if not for that, Shvius knocks out loans. This is not your standard loan, so therefore it will knock it out. It will not knock it out. So even if the guy doesn't do a prusbul, he will be able to collect on it. And if he changes his mind on this arrangement of how he's going to get paid back, he cannot go back on it. We'll see in a few lines who's the one that can't change the mind, the lender or the borrower, meaning the kohanim and the leviim who are the borrowers, or the Yisroel who's the lender. If the bailim gave up, then he cannot separate them. You can't separate trumas and maisus for things, loans that are lost. Now, this is a major line right here when it comes to the business of lending money. From this Gemara's mashma, that if you lent money to a guy and you gave up on him ever paying you back, which is the majority of loans, by the way, right? Sometimes people come to me and they ask, should I lend money to Yanim? I say, does he have a way to pay you back? Meaning, did he tell you, like, I'm doing a deal, a specific deal, and I'm going to pay you back? Because if he doesn't have a way to pay you back, just realize you're doing a mitzvah, you're probably not seeing that money. Right? Which is fine. I mean, I don't know if it's fine that he doesn't pay it back, but let's say that happens and you're miyayish on the loan. The Gemara here is mashma that you're not allowed to collect. Right? Your guy's a poor guy. He borrows money from you. He says, I'm paying you back in a month. And then it's years and it's stretching out. You just say, you know what? Forget it. I give up. Then the guy comes and says, I won the lottery. Here's your money. You're not allowed to take it. According to this Gemara's mashma, you're not allowed to take it.
If I put in $10,000 into a deal, and then I find out it's a Ponzi scheme, or $15,000, right? And I feel in my mind, I'm not giving up on that money. Really, I'm saying, even though it's
So,
10,
good. So you were a miyayish, so you're fine.
I mean, I don't think it's ever going to happen because it's a Ponzi. But if you'd ask me tomorrow, I would say, yeah, give me the money back.
Zev, when they ask you on the tuition assistance, are you owed any money? Are you going to put it on there as like credit, or are you miyayish that you're never getting that money again?
I don't deal with tuition, so I don't really know. If you want to ask me about fundraising, Paris, I'm not miyayish that I'll ever get money from you.
That doesn't that you could be. That's fine. You can go.
You
could.
You might have better luck getting money for Darche from Mordechai Stein.
Paris is the big guy over here.
But anyway, but that's what this Gemara is mashma, right? This Gemara is mashma that you can't, you're miyayish, and you can't. Okay, so that's a big tumult in the poskim, whether that's true or not. But we'll get back to another practical thing that comes up a lot once we finish the sugya. Right. So anyway, so the Gemara again says there's no ribis issues with the price if the price goes up. There's no shmita. Shmita doesn't knock out the loan. He can't backtrack on this arrangement, and if the lender gives up on the borrower ever paying him back, he cannot start using this shtick. Meaning, just to make it clear, so the guy never had this deal in place. The lender, he lent money to a kohen and a levi. He never had this deal in place, and he realized it's been years, and the guy never paid him back. So he says, a great idea. Why don't I just keep the trumas and meisos? That will not work because he already was miyayish. Yeah. Fine. So now the Gemara is going to go through them. Amar Mar, Paisik Imam Kishara Zol. He can Paisik, meaning he can decide with them according to the cheapest. Pshita, right? It's Pashat. Right? You can make any Tanai you want in a loan. So Kamashmalan, Afal Pishalai Pasak. No, we're telling no, even though you didn't make this deal, Kamisha Pasak Dami, it's as if he did make the deal. Right? I'm sorry, I said before the price goes up. If the price goes down, he gets to keep it at the higher price. Fine. Vein by Mishum Ribis, and there's no Ribis. My time, how come there's no Ribis? Given the Chilesle, Lo Yavle, this part was hard to understand. I mean, philosophically, conceptually, right? Given the Chilesle, because let's say the guy didn't have Trumas and Meisos, Lo Yavle, he's not going to have to pay him back. So ki islay nami ain't b'mishum ribis. So if he does have, right, if he has trumas and meisos, then there's no ribis, right? Yeah. Meaning, basically, what the Gemara is saying is that once they agree to this deal, then the lender is not on the hook anymore, because the lender said, "You're going to get paid your money from trumas and meisos. Your trumas and meisos went bad. Let's say there was a flood and your fields got knocked out. That's your problem. That I was paying you back from the trumas and meisos. I was not paying you back from my own money." It's fascinating. He's not on the hook for this. Can you imagine?
Where's the Kenyan? Where's the Kenyan that's transferring that also trumas and meisos is on the hook?
Well, that was the beginning of the Gemara. Those are the three sheetas that have different mahalchim. There is no Kenyan, but it's Keilu that's a Kenyan.
So how's it transferable?
Well, those are the first three sheetas. Either he knows him, or
it's all good. It's all good enough in halacha.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, anyways, but the point is this kohen and Levi, they're no longer on the hook. Right? Once they say you're taking your trumas and meisos as your payment back, it's fascinating because that means that's like 1 second, you still owe me money. Like, who are we kidding? We made this arrangement because I'm so poor that you'll keep the trumas and meisos. That's fine. But now that this arrangement fell through, so I'm no longer on the hook. That's exactly what the Gemara is saying. Yes, he's no longer on the hook. And therefore, since he's no longer on the hook, it's not considered really a loan, so there's no ribis. Right? Fine. Then the next one is Ein Shvius Mishamta. So Shvius doesn't knock out the loan. The Loikarina Ve Lo Yigos, because you can't, Lo Yigos means you can't go ask for the money. Right? So here too, again, the same concept. If this guy's property or his crops, I guess, go down, then he doesn't he doesn't have a right to the loan. So therefore, that's not considered your standard loan, so there's no Shemitah doesn't knock it out. Fine. And if he wants to change his mind, he can't. When he says he can't change his mind, that's the balabayas, meaning the Yisroel, the lender, can't change his mind to the kohen. But the kohen with the balabayas and if he wants to change his mind, he can. Why? Because he's the owner of the Trumas and Mises, right? So therefore, you could take it back to Tanan. Nasan le'mois. Let's say once this is a standard purchase, he gives him money. The buyer gives money. And he never did a mashicha. He never picked it up. I'm sorry, and he didn't pick up the fruits. He can change his mind because there was no kinyan done. Meaning he gave kinyan kesef, he didn't do a kinyan hagba or mashicha, right? So therefore, he can back out. So we're saying the same thing here. Since he never did any kinyan, so therefore it's not, he can back out. Even though before we said that it's as if there was a kinyan, right? Saying how does it fit with that? Okay, I'm not sure if it fits into those first three pshatim or not. Okay, whatever it is. So bottom line is the kohen can, or the kohen and levi can change their mind. The Yisroel cannot. Now, I'll tell you where this comes up is when a guy, a form of this comes up. A guy lends money and he decides that he's not being paid back. Can he use his own meiser money to pay himself back on behalf of the ani? Right? Meaning I lent the guy $100. Guy's not paying me back. I say, why should I go give my $100 to Darche? Let me pay myself back with that $100. Give it to this ani on behalf. So obviously the first issue is the ani has to make a kinyan, like we've discussed. So that's one. Two is can you give a guy meiser without him knowing that he's taking meiser?
Wait,
right?
giving is that meiserable?
That's a different question. Now, on top of that, is it meiserable?
I'm saying, so what who says this person's right? It's not, you basically want to pay yourself back with the money that guy owes you.
Correct.
Okay, what's wrong? That guy's an ani, no?
He's an ani, so you're using meiser and ani.
Why do you have to pass it around?
What do you mean? He's an ani?
He's an ani if he didn't pay it back.
Who says he's an ani because he didn't
We're
pay
not
back?
talking about a ganev. We're talking
It's
about a
not-
guy that wants to pay back. He doesn't have. We're not talking about a ganev.
He doesn't have the money today. Maybe he'll have it in a year from now. It's 6 months. I don't know.
Maybe,
That's,
but today,
that's the definition of an ani.
Debbie, today he's an ani. Today.
Okay.
So there's a, what do you call it? There's it's a big shaila in the poskim. Do you have to tell him? Can you do this? If you tell him, can you tell him that you're going to do this? No, it's not can you. Can you? Then for sure it works. You call the guy and say, listen, I'm taking my money, right? So that would work. Question is, can you do it without telling him?
Well, it should be a mamad shlashtan. The borrower is a lender and whatever entity meiser is.
Yeah, why not?
Because meiser is, even if once he's mafresh it, he still owns it.
So what are you saying?
So you could be mezaka for Yana. You don't need a third person necessarily.
I don't know if you need a third. Just tell the guy. Are you going to tell the guy? No?
Why would it need that? What are the mechanics that says it would need that?
Because how do you go give a guy tzedakah without telling him?
I can't walk
You
into a
have to
store
tell
and pay
somebody you're
someone's
giving
tab.
tzedakah to them, Tiago?
No, but meaning your Michael is loan. Your Michael is loan. You know, of course
Yes.
you give matana. Giving tzedakah b'seiser is avada. It's the best tzedakah, right? But here you're being Michael the guy's loan.
If I walk into a store and pay someone's tab, I need to notify them? Or the
No,
store needs to
no,
notify
no,
them?
you don't have to.
So what's the difference? This just happens to be I'm the store.
Yeah, but there you're paying. When the guy goes and looks at his account, he's going to say, "Oh, my account's at zero now. Somebody paid my bill."
So when he comes to me to pay it, I'll tell him, oh, someone paid it already.
Oh, so then you do have to tell him. You can't
I
tell
mean,
him
at
you're
some point
Michael.
you're gonna tell him. It's not.
Why? Why? Maybe you could just say you're Michael when you're not really Michael. Right? Same thing. If people ask, they want to give a discount to somebody. I just had it with a shaitel. That's the most common one. The shaitel. They say, okay, I'm going to give them a 10% discount, but I want to take that discount from Misa. You have to tell them. You don't have to tell them. Right? I don't think you have to tell them. But you have to know that they're an ani. Right? Okay, whatever. You get for das issues. You have all these things. So yeah, that's a fallout from this Gemara. Okay, bye. Like we said, if the Bailam give up on the loan, they don't think they're ever going to get paid back, then they can't get paid back because you're not, once you give up, you give up. So Gemara says Pshita. It's talking about where it started growing, and then the crops got ruined. Mao, the same Aknasa Milsahi, the part that grew, that became something, and you were already then his yish is nothing, right? Because he thought maybe he'll get epis something, kamash palan, that's considered a yish. I mean, we thought maybe it grew a little bit, so he has some hope. Meaning, if the crops never grew, so he never had hope in the first place. So he never thought he's ever going to get paid back. Right? Like we said, the guy doesn't have to pay him back because the deal was for Chumas and Mises. But maybe if it grew a little bit, so maybe he did have some hope. So the Mishna says, the Braysa is telling you, no, that's considered hope, no hope, and therefore he can't take back his money. Fine. Tanya Rebelezman Yaakov Hamal b'Mois is a kohen as a levi bezdin. So a guy lends money to a kohen and a levi in bezdin or mesu, and they die, meaning either the kohen or the levi. Mafresh alein b'cheskas oisei hashevet. A very interesting lashon from the Gemara. You mafresh on the behalf of the shevet, like we said before. They're all considered one shevet, kohanim, leviim. So they all have to scratch each other's backs. So they have to all take care of each other. So since they're all achroi on their buddy's loan, so therefore he's still allowed to separate the chumas and maises and keep it for himself. Right? It's a fascinating thing. I don't know. Do we do this nowadays? Can I go over to a kohen? Right, we got Rachamim over here and Aaron Kaplan. So Aaron Kaplan, let's say, owes me money. So I go to Rachamim and say, hey, you guys all achroi for each other. I'm taking your money. Right?
Good luck with that.
Yeah.
It sounds anti-Semitic.
That's what I was going to say. Good luck with that. Oh, yeah, something like that.
Yeah. I'm saying, is that what we say here, or only saying it for Chumas and Maisus? Well, parents, what you think? Why Yisroel's not mechuyev too? That's what you're saying.
No, I'm saying the anti-Semites. That's what they say. You Jews are all responsible for each other. So I'm taking from you.
Well, that's true, but here we're saying that kohanim. What about why isn't a yid responsible for another yid? Why are we stopping at kohanim and leviim? Right?
Maybe it's a special conference that Kohanim and Leviim have, and you don't have that with the rest of Klal Yisroel. I don't know.
Maybe.
No, because they
The
get the
kohanim
miser.
are mitzvah, the kohanim are mitzvah in Ava.
They're getting the
Or
handouts, Yaakov.
Right.
Okay, so who are they getting the handouts from? What's the difference? I get from you, I take from you, so.
Okay, maybe it's because Klal Yisrael is always supporting them. I hear. Fine. And what about the ani? It's the ani beis, and the ani goes in beis, right? And then he dies. So mafresh shalom b'cheskes ani Yisrael. Same thing. He gets to keep it for the chazaka of aniyim of Klal Yisrael. Now, what does this mean? Now we're going to make all aniyim responsible. They can't even pay back their own debts. They're going to be responsible for other aniyim's debts, right? So the reason is, like we said, because you got to keep the economy rolling. The only way to keep the economy rolling is if there's money available to be lent, right? So if people are going to be afraid that there's no way to get paid back, they're not going to make loans, right? So therefore, they're basically putting all the poor people together in one basket, and they're going to say, if you don't get paid back, you can take your meiser ani, your own meiser ani from your own crops, and keep it for yourself, which from this is mashma, that you are allowed to pay yourself back with meiser money. Okay, this is talking about meiser ani. It's a different story, but saying we're using meiser ksafim, it's a different din. But seemingly from this Gemara, it's mashma, you could pay yourself back, no problem, right? And that will keep people lending money to aniyim, because they know they have a way to pay themselves back with the meiser. Okay. Not just aniyim from Yidden, the chazak of aniyim of the whole world. Okay, my benai, what's the difference between those two opinions? Antam and beis now, kusim. The difference is kusim, right? So then, meaning they're having machlok is whether the kusim were geri arayos, meaning because they were only gerim because they were scared of the lions, or were they legit? Right? If they were not legit, so then they're not yidden, so they don't get meiser ani. Yeah. So according to the first shita, they were not gonna, because it's only ani Yisroel, so they're out. According to the other shita, so then if they're real yidden, so then they can. Fine. Then the Gemara says hesher ha'ani. Let's say the ani becomes wealthy, ein mafresh Allah, then you cannot separate meiser ani. Right? We can't say he cannot separate it and be zoicha with what's in his hand. Meaning you have this guy, an ani, who borrows money from him. And they make up this deal that the meiser ani is going to keep for himself, which again, but here it's mashma that they have to make the deal. Right? Which is again, is mashma, you have to tell the ani about it. Right? But then the guy becomes wealthy, he does not have to pay it back. You hear that? The ani became wealthy, right? He still is he's not on the hook to pay back the loan for the same reason we said in Amud Aleph. Because once they made up that the Trumas and Mises was paying back the loan, then it's out of his hand. So here it is, you have this guy who's wealthy now, and he doesn't have to pay back the loan. Because the guy was getting back his money from Meiser. Meiser took over the loan. Right? Now, I don't know does that mean that he should pay it back anyways, L'fnei Meshuras Hadin? I don't know. But he's certainly not on the hook. Okay, v'Rabbanon. Yeah. And the Rabbanon who say that he's allowed to keep the Trumas and Meiser, right? Even after the guy died. Mishna, Lemisa David Takanta, who Mishna Ashiras David Takanta. Meaning on Amud Aleph, we said that if the ani dies, the guy can get paid back, right? And here we're saying that the guy. One second, I'm mixing it up here. I'm sorry, I mixed it up. I said no. The guy, hold on. I'm sorry. Right, I'm sorry. Yeah, there's one step that I left out. Meaning on Amud Aleph, when the Ani dies. So we said that the lender can still separate the Meiser and keep it for himself. Even though it's no longer the Meiser of the Ani, because the Ani is dead. So you can't say you gave him the Meiser money, you take it back, he's dead. He doesn't get Meiser Ani. Right? But we say, no, he's taking it because he's taking it from the other Aniyim's portion, because they're chayav to take care of this guy. Fine. But now the Gemara is saying, but if he becomes wealthy, then he can't separate the money. Because why? Because the guy's wealthy, and the guy was entitled. The guy doesn't have to pay it back anymore because he made the arrangement that the only thing that's paying back is the meiser, right? And now that there's no meiser there, he's potter, right? Meaning he can't give the meiser ani to this guy anymore because he's wealthy, right? So since he's wealthy, he can't give it to him, right? So then why should he be able to keep it anyways? He can't, right? So basically, again, we're saying that when the guy died, so how can you keep the guy's meiser? He's potter. You're not potter. He can't get meiser. He's dead. So how do you keep the meiser anyways for the loan? The reason is because he's taking the other aniyim's money. But when the guy became wealthy, he doesn't have to pay back the loan, even though he's wealthy now, because he made up that the loan is being paid back from meiser. Therefore, the loan is out of his hands. Has nothing to do with him. And since it's out of his hands, we can't say that, okay, we'll transfer the loan onto the other poor people because the loan was not anybody's responsibility. So now that's the difference. So then the the Gemara asked, according to Rabbanan, how come when the guy dies, so then we say, well, we need to make sure that the other aniyim pay it back, because otherwise people are not going to lend money. But how about when the guy becomes rich? Maybe nobody's going to lend money to poor people because they're going to be afraid that the poor person is going to win the lottery and the guy's never going to get paid back his money for a legal loophole, right? Meaning, like a poor guy borrows money from you, says, I'm going to invest this money, I'm going to make tons of money. So I says, Givaldik, I'll lend you the money. But then he realized, 1 second, he becomes wealthy, he's not going to pay me back, right? Because I'm not going to get the money back from my Meiser Ani because it doesn't go to him because he's no longer an Ani. And I can't take the Meiser Ani from the other Aniyim because the other Aniyim is not eligible because this guy's wealthy. And the borrower is going to say, we made a deal that you're getting paid back from the Meiser Ani. Just because you can't take the Meiser Ani now because I'm rich doesn't mean I'm chayiv to pay it. So why are we not concerned that the guy's going to become wealthy and he's going to lose out? The lender's going to lose out. So our answer is Misa Shchicha, Shiras Loi Shchicha. I can attest to that one, right? Misa is shchiach, wealth is not shchiach. I'm talking about the second part, right? Hilkach loy chashula, right? So they're not.
Does this mean in general? Is this a generalization or within the terms of a loan?
I was wondering about this. What do you mean? To become wealthy is not shchiach. So how does anybody become wealthy? Because they're born into it. So how do you understand galgal l'chayzer?
I thought it meant within the terms of a loan. I'm lending you money for 3 months. In that 3 months, it's highly unlikely for anyone to become wealthy. However, Misa, poverty historically has always been a reason for death.
Right.
Early.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how this works. I do have to tell you something. I came in, landed in Florida, 9:30. I went to like a 10 o'clock minion. So I was wondering if there's going to be, the place was hopping and bopping, Kal Hasidim in North Miami Beach. And there's even tikkun with herring and cake. And I hear saying, oh, and then they take the tikkun very serious. There's a piece of paper there. So before anybody made a mezainis, they actually read the name. So it was somebody from the Holocaust. What's the first name? It's Yaakov ben Moshe. I was like, you serious? What's the message here? I'm telling you. So, yeah, it was a good humbling thing to hear.
Especially the day we learn like Trey Yosef and Shimons.
Yeah, true. That's true. I didn't even think of that. Yeah. But anyways, yeah. So anyways, the Gemara is saying Misa Shchiach Ashiras is Loi Shchicha. Right? I think many people can attest to that. It's not common to have become wealthy. If your friend dies, meaning if they tell you your friend dies, so Asher means you believe it. It's Asher, Loisa Asher. But if they tell you that your friend made money, don't believe it. Right? Yeah. But anyways, so that's that. So that's the end of that sugi. Fine. Next sugi. Meis tzarich lito rishus. If he dies, he needs to take rishus. Right? Meaning you have to take rishus from the yarshim. So Tanya, Rebbe Omer, yarshin sheyarshu. It has to be yarshin that inherit. So I ask, so miika yarshin delo yarsi? Is there such a thing as yarshim who don't inherit? Right? What do you mean? There has to be yarshim that yarshu. If there's a yerusha, they yarshin. Right? Unless they get into a big fight. So maybe they yarshim that don't yarshim. Right? That's fairly common. Right? Okay. El Omer of Yochanan, sheyarshu karka. Talking about with a yarshin karka. I don't know if Dr. Zakaria is still on or not. Hello, sheyarshu karka, but lo sheyarshu psachim. They yarshin land, but they did not yarshin money.
I'm not on.
Okay. So anyway, so what the Gemara is saying here is that when the yarshim are not mechuyev to pay back the father's loans, but if they yarshin land, then or real estate basically, then he has to pay it back. Right? So that's what the Gemara is talking about. It has to be yarshim who yarshin something that would be mechayev them to pay back the loan. Yeah, fine. So Rabbi Yochanan, iniach malei machat. If he left them over a sliver of land, what?
Rabbi Yochanan was the line before.
Oh, so you understand? I know I mixed it up a couple times today because the Rabbi Yochanan's coming up in another line too. Yeah, thank you. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, iniach malei machat. If the father left a land the size of a what do you call it? A needle. Goiva malei machat. You can only collect the amount equal to land that's the size of a needle. Malei kardam. But if it's the size of an axe, goiva malei kardam, then you can only collect from the size of an axe. Rabbi Yochanan says even if he left just slightest sliver of land, goiva malei kardam, he could collect even a malei kardam. And Rashi says it's malei kardam is lav dafka. Once there's a little bit of land, then the lender can go collect all the money, even though the land is only a small portion of what he's owed, but based on it's sort of like grandfathered in. Once he can collect something, he could collect everything, according to Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan says no, you can only collect on the equivalent of the worth of the land. Right? So that's the machlokes. Ukemaisa the katina da Abaya, the story of the small field, what Abaya paskin. So Rashi says, and that's the Gemara in Ksubas, which I did not remember, but Rashi put a good reminder in, right? That somewhere where a guy was owed 100 zuz, and they only had a field, and there was a field, the guy died, right? A lender was owed 100 zuz, and then the guy died, the borrower died, and he left a field of 50 zuz. So Abaya told the guy they can go take the land. Then the Yarshim went and paid him the 50 for the land. They said, we're only going to give you 50, that's all the land is worth. He said, fine. And then he went and grabbed the land again. They said, okay, now pay me the other 50. So basically, Rabbi Yochanan is going with what Abaya is saying, and you can keep doing this to the land. So as long as there's a little bit of land there, you can just keep taking possession of the land until the guy redeems it properly. Fine. Tana Rabbanan, Yisroel Shomer LeLevi. So if a Yid that went over to a Levi and said, Meiser yesh lecha biyadi, your Meiser is in my hand. Right? We're not afraid that there's trumas meiser mixed in. Okay, we just need to do a little bit of chazara what goes on. First, you take off truma, you give it to the kohen. Truma is either a 40th, a 50th, or a 60th, right? Not that much. Then you got to give from the remaining, you have to give 10%, that's meiser, hence the word eser, meiser, to the levi. Then from that, the levi has to give to the kohen. From his meiser that he got, he has to give to the kohen. Right? So here, this guy separated meiser from the levi. Now, what about the trumas meiser? Was the trumas meiser separated? Basically, he told the levi, I have your meiser is by me, and I'm keeping it for whatever reason he's keeping it. He obviously had to be halachic, good halachic reason he's keeping it. We're not choshed that there was the trumas meiser that was mixed in it. But if it's a kur meiser, if he says it's a kur, which is a whole lot more, that's a major measurement, 30 saw. Kur is 30 saw. Choshed in the trumas meiser shabai, we are choshed for the trumas meiser in it, and therefore the guy will not be able to eat it. So now, my Gemara, what exactly is going on? The Gemara is going to have three different pshatim as to what this meant. My Gemara, what is the Gemara saying? So I'm going to buy a whole Gemara. Yisroel shamal levi. Yisroel told the Levi, "Ma'aseh yeshlecha b'yadi v'heilech damav." I have your meiser, and here's the money. I'm paying you for it. Now, basically, I guess he liked his crops, and he didn't want to give them up. So he took meiser, and he gave it to the Levi. And then he said, I'm paying you for them. And he didn't give it to the Levi. He said, I'm keeping the meiser. I'm just giving you the money instead. And the Levi said, fine. Maybe the Levi went and said that he wants to get at this Yisroel. So he says, you know what? I'm going to take my other meiser that I have in a different field, and I'm going to use this meiser as the trumas meiser to give it to a kohen. And now this Yisroel is messed up because he thought he's getting to keep the meiser because he paid the Levi for it. But what the Levi did is he used that meiser as his portion to give to a kohen. And now essentially this Yisroel is using the fruits that belong to a kohen for the truma from the meiser that he had to give. Right? Basically, he's trying to scam. Again, I don't know if he's really trying to scam, but it's a way to understand it. The Levi is trying to scam this Yisroel, right? Basically, Yisroel goes over to a Levi and says, normally I give you the fruits, but this year the fruits are so good, I want to keep them myself. So instead of giving you the fruits, I'm going to give you money. Okay, Levi doesn't have a choice, so he gives him the money. He takes the money. Then he says, you know what? I can get this guy. I have to give truma from another 100 fields that I collected from my friends. I got to give truma. So instead of giving truma for each one of those fields, I'm just going to take all this truma, all the fruits from this Yisroel who bought my meiser from me. I'm going to give that to the kohen. Gershon, I see your face is going meshuga. Probably what you're thinking is going to be the Gemara's kasha. Yeah, I think. Right? So anyways, that's what he said to do. So, but we're not choshev for that. If it's a small amount, we're not choshev for that. Kur meiser yesh l'cha b'yadi, but if he says a kur, which we said is a much larger amount, and here's the money, choshev shem asol chumas meiser al makom acher. We're choshev that maybe he's going to do chumas meiser al makom acher. So Gemara says,
I wasn't thinking the Gemara's kasha. That was my first kasha. But then it was not, what are the mechanics to do this? How would a Levi do this? It doesn't belong to him. Namad Aleph, we just said that we would never be talking about Makirei Levia. Now the only way to do this would be say we're talking about Makirei Levia.
Right. Yeah. Oh, you mean you want to say okay? So what's wrong?
Well, Kulei Alma don't hold like Rav because the Makirei Kuna we're not talking about. Like there it was a big chiddush to say Makirei Levia, and here it's the only way to put it in.
But whatever.
But when would he do this anyway? After he receives the money, then he says that meiser, which is it's not his anymore.
Well, whenever it was his, that's what you have to.
He didn't know it was his until the guy came to him, or maybe he did.
I don't know. It's very technical Gemaras. Either way, the Gemara asks one obvious question. We're talking about Rishayim, to Shakli Dami. They take money, Umashulu Chumas Maisa, and then they make it into Chumas Maisa. He's really messing up this guy bad. If he does this and he says, "Hey, you know those fruits that you just sold to me, I'm going to make them into Chumas Maisa," but he doesn't tell it to the Yisroel. Are we talking about a guy who's such a jerk that he's going to make this guy end up eating truma that belongs to a kohen? Right? Can't be. Ella, different shot. Yisrael Shama leben Levi. Yisrael told the son of a Levi, right? Meiser lo avicha biyadi, halech tamav. Your father had money by me, meaning, I had money that I had crops that I normally give to your father, right? And then I told him that I'm buying it from him. So now, so there, the father, meaning he's not doing it, he wouldn't have done it on purpose, right? So then we're not choshed that this Levi is going to do it, meaning because he doesn't know. So Mameli, he wasn't doing it on purpose like the previous Gemara. So we're not choshed with that. But kur ma'aseh lavicha biyadi ve'elech dama. But if it's a kur, and here's the money, then choshesh in shema asu aviv chumas ma'aser al makam acher. Then we have to be concerned that he did the chumas ma'aser al makam acher, right? Meaning the difference between this teretz and the previous teretz is that here, since there's a father and a son, we're afraid that there wasn't a communication there exactly what was being done with the chumas ma'aser. So there was nobody's angry. Okay, but then nobody's being a rusher. So Gemara says, so min hamukaf means that you have to have everything close to it. Parents, you should know this from your challah. Every time you make your billion challahs, do you take off one challah on all of them or not? Right? So let's say you have challah in one room, challah in another room. So the chatchila, you should put them all together. Right? That's min hamukaf. But if you don't do it min hamukaf,
Yaakov, we can't throw him on the spot like that. He makes such delicious challah, you know what I mean?
He does. Avade does. That's why I'm giving him a plug.
Oh, okay.
Giving him a plug. So, but what we're saying, the lechatchila, you want to take off trumas and maisers on everything that's in front of you, not just what's, I'm going to take off truma from the field that's 5 miles away and based on a different field that's another 5 miles away, meaning you want to put it all in front of you. So
it doesn't work like losses and taxes.
Correct. Exactly. Well, it does, but chaverim, you don't do it lechatchila. As well as v'chinechshu chaverim litraim shaloim min hamukaf. Our chaverim. Now I don't know how we know we're talking about. Chaver means a talmid chacham. Right? Now I don't know. We're talking about talmid chachamim. Maybe we're just talking about a plain Jane guy. But are we chayshid that chaverim are going to take truma loim min hamukaf, which is exactly what we're worried about here, right? Because we're worried that he took this trumas. He took the Chumas Maisa from stuff that's in the Levi's field, right? The Yisroel's field, and he's using it for Maisa, for Truma from someplace else, right? So are we chayshah? People can actually do something like that? Hello, Ravashi. So Ravashi has a different shot, the opposite. Now, Ben Yisrael Shomer Levi Kach Amrli Abba. But Ben Yisrael tells the Levi, this is what my father told me when he was dying. Maiser L'cha B'yadi, meaning that he said, this Levi is going to, I had fruit that belonged to this Levi from Maisa. Right now I'm dying. He says it's going to the kid. Or he says, I have Maisa that belonged to the Levi's father in my hand. We have to be chayshid that Chumas Meiser had to be separated. And the assumption is that it was not yet separated. Meaning till now, we were worried about that the Levi's separating Trumas Meiser from it on another place, and what the guy is eating is Truma. Now we're saying, no, maybe before anybody could eat any of the crops, Truma has to be taken off, Meiser has to be taken off, and then Truma from the Meiser has to be taken off. So here, since there's so much confusion as to what's going on, if it's a small amount, we're going to be concerned that nobody ever took off Trumas Meiser, so how can the Yisrael eat it? Given the kids, since there was not a set amount, the balabais didn't know yet, right? Like he had to do an accounting. He's waiting for his accountant to tell him exactly how much meiser he had, and then he's going to take it off. So we have to be concerned that Trumas meiser wasn't taken off. Kor meiser lechaviyadi, but if he says that there's a kor, which is a large amount, or kor meiser lavicha biyadi, or you had a kor of meiser to your father in my hand, ain't chashin Trumas meiser. We're not worried about Trumas meiser. Kivan the kites to kuni takne balabayas, because we're assuming since the guy knew it was a kor. So he says, "Oh, I just brought in a core. I better take off Trumas Meiser from that, and therefore we're not gonna be afraid that Trumas Meiser was not taken off." Okay, we're in the middle of a sugi here. There's gonna be one more kasha, but that we'll leave for tomorrow. Okay, I hope it was semi-understandable. Shvacha crowd tonight, but yeah. All right.
When you back to town?
What do you say, parents?
They're all at the Shabbat brothers.
Who's?
Kaplan.
Almost.